Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we will be going live at 10 o'clock. Soon as I drop this backdrop, then everything starts from there.
Sound check, Doug Schuster.
Okay, I hear you just fine. Okay, we're live.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rob Pitts. I chair the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County, and I'd like to welcome you to this special call meeting of the Board of Commissioners of Fulton County. Today is Friday, October 2nd. The hour is 10 o'clock a.m. Madam Clerk, please call the roll for purposes of a quorum.
Chairman Rob Pitts.
Present.
Commissioner Liz Hausman.
Present.
Commissioner Bob Ellis.
Present.
Commissioner Lee Morris.
Present.
Commissioner Natalie Hall.
Present.
Vice Chairman Marvin Arrington Jr. Commissioner Joe Carn.
Present.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. We have a quorum present. Now, would you check to see how many mayors are with us, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Mayors, if when you hear your name called, please indicate that you're with us.
City of Alpharetta, Mayor Gilvin.
Mayor Gilvin, you with us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Love that background.
Thank you, sir.
Chattahoochee Hill, Mayor Reed.
Continue.
College Park, Mayor Motley Broom.
Present.
East Point, Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Here.
Fairburn, Mayor Carhurst.
Present.
Hateville, Mayor Hallman. Johns Creek, Mayor Bodker.
Here.
Milton, Mayor Lockwood. Mountain Park, Mayor Steele. Palmetto, Mayor Bodie. Roswell, Mayor Henry.
Present.
Sandy Springs, Mayor Paul.
Present.
South Fulton, Mayor Edwards. Union City, Mayor Williams. And City of Atlanta, Mayor Bottoms.
Okay, thank you, mayors. Thank you, commissioners. What I thought we'd do, this is an effort on our part to improve communications with our mayors and to keep each of you informed about what we're doing here at Fulton County. I've asked the manager to prepare several presentations about really topical issues now. And what I would suggest is actually three areas. Number one is a COVID-19 update with statistics and the impact. Number two would be the CARES funding, municipal award and community support. And number three, elections update. And lastly, we talk about some future topics with the chief operating officer, which shouldn't take very long. And what I recommend is that allow the manager and his team to give their presentation in each topic area, and after each topic area, have them respond to questions that you may have, if that's okay with everyone. So the first area, Mr. Manager, would be the COVID-19 statistics and impact.
Yes, sir. Good morning, mayors and commissioners. Just as a brief update, kind of in the spirit of we are where we rode to, which was an old saying that we had in Bell South. We're going to really focus on these three areas, and I think consistently going forward. What are the COVID results and trends, and ground everybody in that. Then do an overview of the CARES funding distribution and anything that may come out of the federal government in terms of future CARES legislation, and then focus on future items, since we have a number of those, elections being the one most pressing. As the chairman said, we'll move rapidly through the charts. A lot of them are self-explanatory and mainly getting to both questions, but also planning and input. You know, our primary focus from the outset of this has been public health, and that's the county's responsibility. And it's been focused on interrupting the spread of COVID-19. I think by all accounts, we've been successful, starting with a joint command, which you'll see today, of the Board of Health and Emergency Management, assisted by a world-class incident management team, EMSI. We've been highly targeted in our emphasis with results tracking, testing at scale, personal protective equipment, and community support being the primary pillars of our plan. And I do wish we had been sharing that information more consistently as we moved along. We've got a number of statistics. We'll share abbreviated version of those with you today, but clearly the ability to test at scale and having tested over 600,000 folks has been our strong suit. That has led us to be able to drive down the percent of the positive cases in Georgia, where we started closer to 20% and we're now below 9% of the overall caseload. And what the net result of that is a projected death rate, which you'll see in a chart, that's 1,000 to 1,200 less than what it otherwise would have been. So this is an enormous success story, perhaps the best in the country, based on feedback that we've gotten from CORE, who operates in 12 major metros, including Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. So as we step through these, we hope we can keep our focus on the big picture, which is public health, and have a good spirited meeting and discussion. Again, our leaders of these areas are the ones, again, that have primary responsibility. So in each one of these, I'll just briefly introduce them. For the first presentation that we're going to make on COVID statistics and impact, you'll hear from Matt Kallmeyer, who's the director of the Atlanta Fulton County Emergency Management Agency, and then Doug Schuster, who's one of the principals at EMSI, the incident management firm that I referenced, and who have been assisting us since the outset. So I think we're ready to move the agenda. I think we've already discussed, we can move past that chart and go ahead and get to Matt's charts on the COVID-19 responses. So if we'll move that forward, I would appreciate it.
Do you want to share the screen, or do they have a presentation?
We got it. Well, you should have received a copy of the presentation, but we're also going to share the screen. Thank you, Ms. County Attorney. Go ahead, Matt.
Good morning. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. As the county manager did say, my name is Matthew Kallmeyer. I'm the director of the Atlanta Fulton County Emergency Management Agency. I'll be joined today by Doug Schuster with EMSI. Doug has an incredible background with multiple responses, and as well as the international company that he represents. And one of the first things that I did is ask the county manager, could we solicit some of their support, knowing what we had to go ahead and deal with within our jurisdiction. So to get started, I'll ask the controller to go ahead and get us to the next slide. We'll give you guys a quick overview of where we are, where things are happening, and we'll definitely open it up to any questions. Some of the things that you'll see today, we've had the opportunity to present to some of the municipalities. Sandy Springs was the last one we did. We had a great interaction with their city council and mayor. And as some of the things you guys see today, if it would be beneficial to your jurisdiction, please let our leadership team know, and we'll do what we can to go ahead and support you in that end. Doug, please go ahead and get us started.
Good morning. We like to start each presentation with a little bit of what you're going to see. It'll be illustrated. All these bullets will be illustrated in the following slides. due to note, over the summer surge was bad for Georgia and Fulton County, as we all know. And it's kind of good every now and then to stop and take a look of where we've been and where we are today. On 7/24, our 7-day average was at a high of 400 cases per day for Fulton County. And as of yesterday, we were down to 69. On July 12th, our 7-day average for percent positives has dropped from a high of 16% on the 12th of July to 3.8 as of yesterday. On April 6th, we were at 14% of the state's caseload. And as of today, we are at 8.7%. I'll talk about the significance of that, but that is, as we talked about a little bit, that's a very important metric to track. And our planning assumptions early on based on population density and the number of bars and a bunch of other factors was about 15%. And it has slowly been decreasing. So we are very happy with that number. We believe a lot of it has to do with our targeted testing efforts that Matt is going to talk about here shortly. Deaths. On August 8th, if you noticed, August is a little bit later than the July dates because deaths are a lagging indicator. So we had our height and deaths for a 7-day average was at 7.6 deaths a day. As of yesterday, we were at 1.1, which is, very good news. On April 6th, we had 14% of the state's deaths toll, and we're down to 8.17, which once again is incredible, and I'll show you proof of what that means a little bit later. Fulton County hospitalizations has dropped from a high on July 23rd to 164 as of yesterday, which is right about at the pre-spike numbers we had back in June. Fulton County since 7/17 has added 266 staff general beds and 23 staff CCU beds, which is quite an accomplishment with a shortage of skilled personnel to man those beds. So that's good news also. Next slide. Matt, you gonna take this? You're on mute, Matt.
Can unmute Matt? That'd be great.
Doug, go ahead.
I'm sorry, folks. I do apologize. For that. It would just not click in the way I was trying to get it to go. So as Doug was saying, overall testing, folks, as you can see, we've been very successful. We put the other jurisdictions up there for you to go ahead and see how we compare to other public health jurisdictions. But as we're approaching the 700,000 mark of individuals that we've tested within our jurisdiction. The bottom right-hand corner, the pie chart will go ahead and showcase once again that we, at one point, we're a little over 25% of the state's total testing. We're hovering right around the 22 to 23% range at this point. And also, one of the things that have been very successful to us thus far is the amount of fixed sites and the amount of mobile sites that we have in our jurisdictions. We've just opened another fixed site yesterday. So that'll bring us to a total of 4 fixed sites. 2 of them are walk-ups, 2 of them are drive-through locations for the citizens of Fulton County to take advantage of, as well as we have 2 Board of Health mobile sites and 6 core mobile sites that are going throughout the whole jurisdiction. We're well over 400 unique mobile locations. Many of your jurisdictions has actually sponsored ours and made it possible for us to go ahead and set up for multiple days in your location. It's still there, folks. We work through your emergency coordinators. If that's something that you would like for us to go ahead and definitely bring those resources to your jurisdiction to support testing, please let our leadership team know. They'll pass that on to us, and we'll go ahead and make that possible. One of the things that's important to note with the additional lab capacity and some of the other techniques and other resources that we're leveraging, namely some of the registration system, the MS Dynamics that the Department of Public Health at the state level has implemented, it does make it a lot easier for our labs to process information. Initially, a lot of the things were being done by hand. Information was passed by a beeper to a lab who had to go ahead and keystroke that in multiple times into the system. It did not work, and we heard the frustration loud and clear from the citizens as well as the state. So the state went ahead and implemented this new program. It has streamlined the process, and we are actually getting test results in 48 hours or less. I did my test this week. I got my results in 14 hours. So please take advantage of that, folks. It's an incredible resource that is still there for you that we can go ahead and bring to your community. Next slide, please. Here's some of the locations. This is what we share with our leadership team. Twice a week, we have a call as area commanders with our executive leadership team. We showcase to them where our spots are going to be. So we see on the left-hand side of the screen our fixed sites. We show them where our 2 mobile sites are going to be. And then we also go ahead and showcase them on the right-hand side of where our different units are actually going to be for the mobile units. So this is something that is updated constantly on the Fulton County's website, also the Board of Health's website, and on social media. We're pushing this information out. If it happens to have a weather delay or we have to cancel during the weather, we're making sure the information gets out as quickly as possible as well. But as you can see, we're taking advantage of your support, your kindness in getting these resources into your community. And I cannot say it enough. Please take advantage of the testing. It's the #1 most important thing between wearing a mask and making sure we do proper contact tracing so that we can actually go ahead and quarantine or isolate, depending upon the situation, individuals so that we can continue to have a positive response towards this COVID. Next slide, please. Doug, I'm going to kick it back to you.
Thank you, Matt. Just want to reiterate, as Matt was talking about the importance of testing, both the Fulton County and the Board of Health websites continually update the future locations of the mobile spots. And the mobile spots have been such an important factor of our success in bringing these totals down. What I don't have here, unfortunately, is a little bit of, well, I do a little bit later, but compared to the state of Georgia and our neighboring counties, not only are we doing more testing, which correlates to a much lower % positive rate, and hopefully we can show that to you. So you can see on the far left in the green that we ramped up testing very towards the end of May, very significantly, as Matt talked about, with and demand was up too, but we were able to meet that demand and provide up to 8,500 tests per day. So we are very comfortable in our capability to handle whatever surge comes towards us, and we have the flexibility to add more capacity if need be. The next one over is the orange. As you can see, we are down to 69 cases a day for our 7-day average. If you look at the far right of the orange graph, you'll see that we are down really to just about the pre-spike levels from April and May. And so this is very encouraging. If you also on the far right, I believe you can see what is now looking like the Labor Day bump of cases, that little upward trend, and then we're back down again. So there was a slight increase in cases about 2.5 weeks after Labor Day, which was to be expected, but it looks like we're on the way down again. I will say, you see that at the top of the orange, you'll see 69, and then you'll see a arrow. That arrow, black arrow, indicates a little bit of a plateau compared to the day before and the day before that. On the blue is our hospital census for Fulton County, which we track every day. We were at a high in July, like I said, of 600, and we're down to 166. I will say that we've reached a little bit of a plateau in the hospitals for the last 5 days. We've been between 162 to 168, kind of up and down. But those numbers, once again, are right at our pre-spike levels, and the hospitals are pretty much acclimated to that level at this time. And then the last chart is the daily deaths for COVID in Fulton County. For about 3 weeks, we've been at a plateau between 1 and 1.5. We were at a high, like I said, just under 8. And as you can see, if I had a comparative slide here to the state, our death rate has been much better than the state's average. Next slide. Real quickly, just want to show you some of the things that we track. On the left-hand side, we track hospital bed availability. We do this for bed availability, CCU bed availability and ventilators. I've only included one today for you, and that's the overall bed availability. So if you look at the chart at the bottom, the blue is non-COVID patients, the orange are COVID patients, and the top is open beds. Generally, you'll see a little bit of a wave action, and during the week, there'll be less beds. We had been if we're less than 15% open beds, we kind of mark that as a critical time, and we communicate with the hospitals and see what their plans are for diversion. We had been on quite a long period of not. The reason that we're in the red over the last 2 days is if you look at the blue, the non-COVID patients are much higher, 23,075, 23,030. The non-COVID patient use to hospitals is way up. Some of the reasons for that might be that people have put off going to the doctor for the last 6 months or so. And so when they do present, they're more acute, more critical. And so you're seeing that also people put off elective surgeries and the like. So the non-COVID patient use is way up. On the right-hand side, we look at 5 different national and international modeling companies, and we take that information and we apply it to Fulton County. As you can see, the black line is the actual hospital bed use with the height at 600, all the way down. The red, green, and orange lines, the red is the worst case scenario for hospital beds as far as modeling. The orange is most probable, and the green is best case. For most of this pandemic response, we have been on the green line. As you can see on the very end of the black line, we have kind of started to lay over on the most probable line. I will say that the modeling right now only goes out to the end of the year. We expect over the weekend to get new numbers, probably taking us out 1 or 2 months into the new year. But the projected next height is on January 1st at 561 beds. And that is actually down from our last iteration of this from 610. So the height has gone down of our hospital beds, and also it has been pushed to the right. Last time I gave this presentation to the Board of Commissioners, the height was projected in November, and it's been pushed all the way back to January 1st. A lot of that has to do with how good we're doing right now. And then the modelers actually look at different things like mobility, questionnaires on mask use, and then flu-like symptoms, and a bunch of other factors to come up with these projections. Each state is different, and each county is different within the state. So that's one of the metrics we look at. Next slide. We also track the percent positives. We think this is really important. The WHO and the CDC have often said once you get below 5%, contact tracing becomes viable. So since July, when we were up around 14%, we have slowly been going down to finally get under that 5% mark. Our next goal would be below 1%. And so we'll see much smaller declines. As you can see, our hospitals overnight was down 1/100%. Fulton County as a whole was at 3.8, same as the day before, and the state actually bumped up just 1/10. So that slide right there just tells you how Fulton County relates to the state. We've always been leading them in this percent positive metric, which is one of the most important things that we track. Next slide. A little bit of perspective here. I won't spend too much time on this, but last time I presented this to the larger group, the United States in the top hand right, Georgia had the most red in the country. We were #1 in communicability. We have slowly been climbing down that tree. As you can see, the Midwest and a little bit in the Big Ten territory now has, with the darker reds, the highest communicability. So Georgia is once again trending in the right direction. And then just to kind of validate what I told you about our percent positives on the bottom left with the state of Georgia, you can see Fulton County. And I would say our testing effort, our targeted testing efforts by the mobile Spots, which we were the first in the country to really do anything like that. We actually identified hotspots within the county, and I would believe our neighboring counties have actually benefited by the huge testing numbers that we've done. So you can see we're below 5% in a highly densely populated area, which is really unusual for other big cities around the country. Next slide. And then I'm getting close to the end here. I just want to talk about impact. The county manager talked about, we have we use the modelers to look at death projections too. Once again, red, worst case, orange, most probable, green is best case. Our black is our actual deaths. And so, if you look at where we were 2 days ago, 575 deaths, we talked about a planning assumption early on of 15%, which is the higher dotted line. And we were at 15% or thereabouts for the first month of the response. And we thought that was a good assumption because even though we were 10% of the state's population because of population density and a whole host of other factors, 15% was what we were tracking at, but it also seemed like a good idea because of our high influx of the hospitals and the people we were testing. The bigger dotted line where it says 804 is when we adjusted to 11.5% for about 3 months, because that's about where we were falling. And then right now, as the county manager pointed out, we were under 8%. And so 2 days ago, really the difference in lives, you can see right there between 575 and even at 11.5%, that's well over 200 lives. And then just about 500 lives on that particular day. And if you forecast it out towards the end of the year, those numbers grow much higher. As you can see, we are tracking just a little bit below the best case scenario. So anyway, I think this points to the fine work of the Board of Health people and the contact tracers and everything that we've done within the county. Next slide. So I've shown you a lot of slides and pictures. We have put together a scorecard. As you can see, we believe we're green in capacity for testing at the top. Our demand, we would like to be higher. And we have the capability to once again go higher, but we're testing 42% of our demand, of our capacity. Our tests, as Matt said, are less than 48 hours. I got mine in 16 hours the other day. So that's very encouraging. Our cases have leveled off just a little bit at 69. And then we're a little bit of a plateau on the percent positives for the county. Hospitalizations, once again, a little bit of plateau. And then as you see the hospital bed availability numbers there in the yellow and in the red, that's really, our hospitals in Fulton County are really busy. And these are really almost pre-COVID numbers for the beginning of the week. But depending on what day it is, those numbers do fluctuate quite a bit. Hospital vent availability, we're at 62% open vents, which is incredible. We've added, I think, over 300 ventilators in Fulton County since the start of the pandemic, which is one of the good things that have come out of it. And then, like I said, we have been on about a 2-week level at right around 1 to 1.5 deaths per day. We also track morgue space and availability, and we are pretty stable on that too. So I'm done, I believe. Next slide.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Back to you, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
Mayors, any questions or comments about this section, this report?
Mr. Chairman, one quick question.
Yes, sir.
The testing sites, are all these drive up? There are no more appointments made for these? Matt?
Mr. Bodie, I just want to see if I had the question correctly. You're asking, do they have to have appointments or they can just walk up? Is that the question,
Yeah.
sir?
Walk up, drive up, whatever, yes.
Yes, sir. So there's a combination thereof. You can actually go ahead and set up an appointment, sir, and or you can actually show up at the location and be able to go ahead and get registered there. So the individuals that we have at the sites have iPads that are connected to the system. They can do that, or Another thing we ask individuals to do, take a couple seconds through the app and just go ahead and register. And that way they're guaranteed to go ahead and be as quick as they possibly can be at that site. So it does add a couple more minutes if you show up without doing the pre-registration process, but it will not prohibit you from taking advantage of the testing, sir.
Okay, Wolf Creek, for example.
Yes, sir. You can still drive up there, sir, and or you could go ahead and register prior to getting to the site.
That's great. Thank you.
Other
One of
questions?
the things that I failed to, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, if I may. One of the things I failed to tell you folks that we have been working with public health is to offer flu vaccinations at all of our spots. They did receive a waiver from the Department of Public Health to be able to go ahead and provide flu vaccinations without checking to see if individuals have supplementary insurance. So we did receive that waiver. So one of the things that we'll be looking at in the middle of October is bringing the flu vaccination process into our mobile spots as well as fixed spots. We'll start the fixed box locations and then branch out from there. But that's something that we'll make sure we pass on to you all and you can share with your citizens and make sure that they do take advantage of that capability to be able to get vaccinated for the flu.
We'll need to promote that. Other questions, mayors, on this section, this segment?
This is Commissioner Hall. I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hall.
I was looking at the testing update, and it seems like there are some new testing sites. Can you let us know, confirm if there are some, because there seem to be a few.
The only one that was added since your last presentation, ma'am, was the Adamsville site that went live yesterday. It
That's
was
what I
a soft
thought.
opening per se. And then
Okay.
that today will be the first full day of the Adamsville site going forward, ma'am.
Okay,
Matt,
thanks.
they're open Monday through Friday.
Okay.
Thank you,
Other-
Doug. Appreciate that.
Thank you. I thought so, but I thought also, I guess it's the core stuff. I just realized it's just a whole list of core sites. That's what that is.
It-
Thank you.
It constantly changes, ma'am. So please, the only thing we could ask everyone to do is just monitor the website. Every week we put the new information where the core units and Board of Health units will be, and you all can take advantage of that. And Jessica Corbin and her team pushes that information out constantly to make sure that through social media as well, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mayors, anything else on this segment?
If we want this presentation to be presented to our council, what do we need to do?
Mr. Manager? They have copies of it,
Yeah,
don't they?
okay.
Yes, I mean, we'd be glad to present it, Mayor, or you also were sent copies of it. So both, we could do both.
I received the copy, but I think an update for our council would be, I guess you went to Sandy Springs. I wasn't.
It was a virtual, ma'am. We did it
Okay,
via
right.
Zoom. So if there's a way for us to go ahead and do that with your city council, myself, Doug Schuster, Dr. Swankett is actually on the line.
Yes,
Dr. Swankett is a Board of Health infectious disease physician. He's also our safety officer for Area Command, and he joins us as well.
Matt,
Perfect.
we can do that. We can do that. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Other questions, mayors?
No, sir.
Okay, continue, Madam Clerk. No, Mr. Manager.
Yes, so our next section is on the CARES funding and those allocations. So Sharon Whitmore, our CFO, will start that. And then we're also going to dive into the analysis coming back from the nonprofits of where CARES funds have been expended by cities. And that'll be Dr. Pamela Rochelle. So Sharon, let me pass it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. If we could go on to the next slide. Hakeem Ashikoa, the finance director, is also on the call and will be available to answer any questions that you may have. What we wanted to do is to give you a snapshot of where we're at right now with the distribution of the funds that have been set aside for the municipalities out of the CARES fund. We have a total of 25 million that's been set aside based on the IGA that has been circulated to each city for approval. There is an opportunity for an advance payment of 30% that totals 7.5 million. We've identified the amount for each city. For those cities that have already approved the IGA and have communicated that approval back to the county attorney, we have prepared those advances in today's check run, and they will either come to you by a normal check or EFT, depending on how your city has registered for payment with the county. We've also identified on the schedule the total amount that has been paid through September 29th. That total amount was 1.7 million. We have an additional 1.8 million from the first 2 rounds of requests for reimbursement. That was included in today's check run as well, which leaves about 13.8 million in total to be dispersed to the cities after the advance and after what has been paid based on the documentation that's already been supported or submitted. Of note, the city of Alpharetta and the city of College Park, after the advance payment and reimbursement against the documents that have already been submitted, they will have both received 100% of their allocation. And then the last column with numbers on it, on this document, is simply to show you the amount that each city had previously requested for reimbursement. On the status of the IGA, as of the close of business yesterday, when we were finalizing the presentation for the meeting, we were still showing that Chattahoochee Hills, College Park, the city of Milton, Palmetto, and Sandy Springs had not yet either notified the county attorney or submitted a copy of their approved IGA. I'm thinking that Chattahoochee Hills is the one I think I saw after the cutoff yesterday as having been received. Hakeem, do you have anything that you wanted to add?
Good morning, everyone. Yes, Sharon, you were correct. We did receive the document for Chattahoochee Hills yesterday, but it was after the cutoff time, so we couldn't include them in the payments and those payments that we're processing today. Just to provide the mayors with information on those cities that we are going to be sending the advance payment on today, I want to call out the names of the cities. It will be just trying to finish it.
All right, on this, let's any questions about this page? Page 16. Okay, continue.
No, sir.
Okay, continue.
Okay, I just want to call out the names of the cities that will be paying today for the advance. It will be Alpharetta. This will be done through EFT. Alpharetta, Abeville, Johns Creek, and South Fulton. Via checks will be East Point, Fairborn, Mountain Park, Roswell, and Union City. So if we send the checks today, we're probably going to get it next week, maybe Wednesday or Thursday. So I want you all to know that. Even though we have not received the IGA for city of Milton, we are also paying them $8,025 today, and that will be done via check.
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I think that I wanted to say was that we did hold a session with the finance representatives from the cities earlier this week. We did that on Monday in an effort to ensure that if there were any questions around the process or the documentation requirements, that they had an avenue to ask those questions. And we will continue to hold those sessions on a periodic basis until we've dispersed all of the funds that remain. So with that, if there are no other questions about the status of the distribution, then I guess we can move on to the section for Dr. Rochelle.
Mr. Chairman, I have one item on this page. I just want to make sure all the mayors that are on the last column, the status of the IGA received. I don't know if this is dated or not, but I want to make sure this checks out with everyone. if they have indeed put in the IGA, if this is correct. So I just want to make sure everyone's taking a double look at that to make sure.
Sandy Springs is voting on it Tuesday, so you'll have it Wednesday morning.
Okay, but everyone else, this is right. I just want to make sure we're correct. Okay.
Continue, Ms. Whitmore, or actually it's Dr. Rochelle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You can next slide. The county's community relief strategy included 4 target areas and an investment of $21 million to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on Fulton County residents. And those target areas are emergency assistance to include rent, utility, mortgage, food, homeless testing, and childcare at $13.1 million, small business loans at $1.5 million, support for the arts community at $1.5 million, and job training at $5 million. All of the categories of community relief, all of the funding has been awarded, and to date, the expenditures by the nonprofits and community partners has totaled $8.8 million for rent, utility, mortgage, food, and homeless testing. For small business loans, 43 loans have been closed, totaling $1.5 million. For our support to the arts community, 143 artists and arts organizations, payments are in progress at $1.5 million, and we have launched our job training program. Next slide. The county will be reporting using our performance management system, the performance of our community relief investments in a variety of areas. We will be tracking those areas in the categories of the number of residents supported, the expenditures by each community partner, the expenditures by city. And here you have a snapshot of what the performance system will show. The performance management system will be accessed or can be accessed by anyone in the public if they go to fultoncountyga.gov. They click on inside Fulton County and go to the open government page. This is a snapshot of our data collected and as reported by our community partners. This illustrates the spending by community organizations per city. You see, we have illustrated that here in the form of a graph as well as individual totals by city. Next slide. We have asked all of our community relief partners to exclusively focus on cities outside of Atlanta, and many of our partners have already exhausted their CARES Act funding allocation. However, there still remains an opportunity to continue serving constituents across the 14 cities, and we do ask for your support in helping to amplify where constituents can continue to receive support in 3 areas. $3.3 million remains to serve constituents in the areas of rent, mortgage, utilities, and food. At the conclusion of today's meeting, you will be receiving a list of each of the organizations that have received CARES Act funding and how your constituents can contact these organizations for emergency assistance, either rent, mortgage, utilities, or food. You will also be receiving a promotional flyer that you can post on social media pages, in your newsletters, or on your city platforms for your web pages for childcare support. This program has launched, and your constituents can reach out either via email or by telephone through to access our child care support services that will be available to constituents in all 14 cities. They will have a choice of among over 500 certified quality rated child care providers, and may be eligible for up to 12 weeks of child care support. And finally, under job training, we have launched the job training partnership, and your constituents can reach out either via email or go to the website or make a telephone call to apply for the job training program at $5 million is still available to support constituents. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my update.
Okay, and Mr. Manager, would you address the City of Atlanta question before we go to questions from the mayors?
I will. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you can see from what Dr. Rochelle overviewed, approximately 2.5 million was provided services to residents that were City of Atlanta residents. We will, as we committed, go to them and request reimbursement for that amount. But I also want to point out that in terms of what's still left in front of us for emphasis outside the City of Atlanta is almost 4 times that amount. So the 3.3 million in emergency assistance, the 1 million in child care, and the 5 million in job training is all been focused on cities outside of Atlanta. So we have a great opportunity, I think, to bring those services, and we would appreciate your help in publicizing and encouraging citizens within your cities to take advantage of those. So that's my last comment.
All right, mayors, questions?
Chairman?
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor Bodker?
First, let me thank you for organizing this, and I look forward to future meetings, although at the end of our meeting, I think the mayors will have some suggestions as to how we can make this a more productive meeting. When I go back to the slide on the 21.1 million community relief, can I ask a few questions?
Yes, sir.
Is there a breakdown that we can get on the 43 loans and where they were located on a city-by-city basis?
Mayor Bodker, absolutely. We will share with you at the conclusion of the meeting the entire open government report, which does include the breakdown of each loan and the individual recipient that received that by name.
I'll assume similarly, we would be able to see the small business arts community organizations that received
Yes, sir.
grants.
Yes, sir.
And I think it was implied, but I assume that if Atlanta wants to participate in the job training, that will be a direct payment from them, and the 5 million will be only for the 14 cities outside Atlanta.
It is only for the 14 million, but I have received word
14 cities.
I mean, excuse me, for the 14 cities, but I have received word from Atlanta that they are not able to participate. They have chosen not to.
Okay.
So that 5 million, in other words, would be exclusively for residents of the county who live in the county but outside of the city limits of Atlanta.
So just at a high level, just so I can take the notes, I've noted now $46.1 million of the total amount. 21.1 went to community relief. Manager Anderson, I know you and I have talked about this. You kind of, if I remember correctly, you told me you break down the 104 million into 3 high categories. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Community relief. What are the other 2?
Well, from the way that we present those, Sharon, do you have it in front of you by chance?
Maybe it'll help if I get to my ultimate question. Can you give us a high level breakdown of how you've now utilized the 104 million?
Yes, we can. Sharon, do you have it in front of you?
I'm pulling my report. Just give me a second.
She's pulling that, Mr. Manager.
I organized myself so much. I can't find it now.
I think Mayor Bodker, also, we have sent it to you.
Okay, Sharon, I have it.
Well, okay.
Well, I can do it.
Yeah.
So Mayor Bodker, we sent it on mid-September when we had that communication. But
Sure.
essentially, the categories are community relief, 21.1 million, health response, hold on just a second, because I want to make sure I do this now in light of the
Correct.
municipalities reserve. All right, so let me revise this. Community relief, hold on, 21.1. Health response, 24.2. Operational stability, hold on just a second, because I think we changed these to get to the 25 million. So have we got that updated, Sharon, in front of you?
I think, Dick, I think Hakeem has his ready.
Yeah, let me call this out. Community relief is 21.1. Health response is 18.6. Operational stability is 37 million. Municipal assistance, 25 million. Reserved for second wave, $2.3 million.
What was the last one?
Reserved for second wave.
Reserved for second wave.
Is how much?
$2.3 million. And I just also want to remind the mayors that the county is providing $5 million of PPE to the cities, even though we don't have it as a separate category, but it is being provided to the cities. So,
Okay, thank you for that breakdown. I'll yield to my fellow mayors.
I think I see Mayor Holiday Ingram.
Yes, good morning and thank you for the presentation. I noticed the breakdown by city of about 145,000 from the city of East Point. I went online to try to find the full report. So I'm happy to know that that will be provided to us after this meeting. But my question is, when I look at that full report, am I going to have to then create a spreadsheet and put all of the East Point numbers in buckets, or will I actually see all together what makes up that 145 for the city of East Point versus having to create that myself?
So Mayor Holiday Ingram, what you will see is the consolidated number. If you wish to have the reports that make up that number, those are submitted weekly by the community organizations, and we could provide you with those reports that are provided. That's how we collect that data. We request every week that organizations report the number served, where they served, and the amount of funding that they expended for that service. And so we would need to compile those reports or send the actual reports to you. Those reports themselves are not on the page.
And so it would be helpful for me to just receive as much of the information regarding what's specifically being provided to residents at East Point. And then for the 145 that's already indicated in the slide presentation, that number, the total number came from somewhere, from adding some different totals.
Yes, yes, ma'am. It came from the reports.
I'm sorry?
It came from the reports that the community partners provide to us every week.
Right, so I'm just saying it would be helpful for me to see what makes up that 145.
Yes, ma'am.
So if that's in the full report, I'll, when I get it, I'll see that. But if it's not, I would like to get that information so I'll know exactly, what that was for. And it relates to the PPE of 5 million. Please expect that we will use every penny allocated to the city of East Point. While we are 8 months into the pandemic and have clearly had to make sure that we've had PPE in place, we will make sure that we utilize those funds because that is the only way that can be used. So again, thank you so much for your presentation, and I'll look forward to receiving the itemization of the 145 reflected in the PowerPoint.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
On the 5 million on the PPE, now is that reimbursable, that we will be purchasing that and getting reimbursed for it, or will the county continue to furnish us with the PPE up to $5 million divided between all of us?
No,
How's that gonna work?
you'll be provided PPE, and I think we've done now our second distribution, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I just want to be clear on that y'all will continue to provide it until the 5 million is gone, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That
thank
being
you.
provided on a pro rata basis, or is that being provided as requested?
It's being provided on an allocation basis based on the trends that you had previously in ordering PPE from the state and an analysis of your employee base. So we could give you, Matt could brief you probably in another meeting on the detailed allocation methodology associated with that.
I want to make sure that I'm understanding the graph in terms of the community organizations. It indicates that it lists everyone by city, and then there's Fulton County as well. Now, are we talking about the 700 people who live within Fulton County but are in an unincorporated area? Because that graph reflects that if that's the case, the 700 people have received more funding than the 15,000 in College Park.
So, Madam Mayor, the reason that Fulton County is reflected in that way is that is how the community organization, that is only the level of detail that the community organization was able to provide. So for example, if it was a drive up food distribution event, typically the organizations do not collect the address from someone receiving a food box. They just tell us how many constituents were served, and then we did our best to account for that activity in Fulton County as a whole, because we could not drill down to the individual constituent level.
All right. And in regard to the 2.5 million that's been spent directly on residents of the city of Atlanta, what is the county's plan to recover that? And once that money has been recovered, what is the plan for using that money? Is it an option for our residents to actually benefit?
Mr.
Manager, you're not
we can't hear you.
muted, sir.
Thank you. I'm sorry for that. We will be putting a letter together for the chairman to send to the city of Atlanta requesting reimbursement. Until we have confirmation that they plan to do so, at this point, we don't have a plan for monies not received.
Let me follow up on that. So if the money is received, is there an opportunity for us to be part of the conversation?
I would say yes. I'll make that commitment, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mayor, is there anything else on this segment? All right.
Great work. Great work, sir. Thank you.
One question.
Chair, just really quick, I wanted to stand corrected. My glasses aren't working this morning. It was 445, not 145. And so I wanted to make sure I acknowledge the right amount and appreciation of what has been spent in the city, but I'll look forward to that itemization. So thank you so much.
Okay. Is someone else?
Yeah, Chairman, I had one question on page 19. We just talked about the Atlanta allocation, the second largest allocation, this unknown category here. My question, I guess this is for Dick or for Anna. How is that possible that we did not know, that we don't know who we gave this money to? Now I'm assuming if we cut them a check or to some nonprofit without requesting basic address information, so that's the second largest pot of funding here. I'm sure we can kind of find that out. I would imagine if we take a second look at that. I mean, that's a lot of money, 1.37 there. So
Manager, do you mind if I answer?
No, go ahead.
You'd be better to do so than me.
Go ahead, Dr. Rochelle.
So Commissioner Carn, that number actually reflects spending, not spending sent to an agency that we didn't know about, but it reflects services such as homeless testing, where we partnered with Mercer or Lutheran Church, where they're serving homeless constituents, and we only know the number of constituents being served, but because of their designation as homeless, we're unable to.
Okay, understood.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so this is the 1.3 million that we allocated for homeless testing. I remember seeing that. Okay, that explains that. It's just kind of badly titled, I guess, more or less. But there is no actual city, like you said. But okay, that explains that money. Okay, all right.
Well, this is Commissioner Hall. That doesn't explain the money. I didn't hear her say that this was spent only on homeless testing. And even if it was spent on homeless testing, we still should know where the money is being allocated. It shouldn't be a question.
Yes, ma'am. We do know where the money is allocated. That we can give you the specific organizations that reported only numbers. I'm giving you examples of that. One would be our $400,000 that we allocated to Mercer. They did extensive testing in homeless camps and street outreach. And so we don't have addresses for the homeless, but we do know how much Mercer spent. We also have the Lutheran Church of the Redeemer, who has a very robust soup kitchen that provides meals. They do not request addresses for any constituent that walks up and requests a meal. The same with Roswell United Methodist Church. They have a feeding ministry. We do know specifically how much Roswell United Methodist Church received, but they do not request an address when they are providing meals to the community. We have several of the organizations that are in the food security category that implemented drive up meal boxes or food distribution. And when the constituent drove up to get the box, they do not request an address from the constituent. But we do know, for example, Enon Church has had a very successful drive up food distribution, but they only have the number served. They don't collect the addresses. So those are some examples of the fact that we do know exactly where every penny of the $2.1 million has gone through a contracting process, but we don't know in every instance, depending on how the organization chose to try to provide community relief. We don't have an address for every single constituent.
Okay, thank you so much. And so a question about capturing at least the zip code for the recipients. Is there any plan for future events where the county will capture that information? Because I think it's very important that we do.
Yes, ma'am. We have asked the community partners, or actually we've revised the reporting so that we can be more detailed in capturing the address for constituents being served. So we have made that adjustment.
Okay.
Commissioner Hall.
Okay, and then lastly, on page 20, from this point forward, when you have these little tiny pictures, can you just make them one full page so that we can actually see them? Because I thought that I would at least be able to see them on the screen, on the computer screen, and they were still tiny. So if you could take see how it's like one page inside of the page, if you could make that one page an entire sheet so that it's easy to read, that would be much better.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Rochelle, oh, I'm sorry.
Mayor Holiday Ingram, I think, had her hand up again.
Mr. Chair, I think that was from earlier when I just wanted to correct on the record. I mentioned 145,000 a couple times, but my glasses weren't working. It's 445,000. So it was just that comment. I don't have anything else right now.
Someone else?
I wanted to follow up on the conversation that we were discussing in regard to things as food, such as food distribution. So Lutheran Church of the Redeemer is at 731 Peachtree Street, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So I understand that if food is being distributed to those who show up, that I totally understand the idea that we may not get an address on every single one of those people. But even having the location of where those events are happening is valuable, because I can tell you that the likelihood of someone from College Park being at that particular location for food distribution is lower. And so even understanding where these events are taking place across the county is valuable information for us as we communicate with our residents and our councils about how this money is being spent. So certainly if we don't have the individual information for every recipient, going back and knowing where these events are taking place would be something that would be valuable to at least me. And I don't want to speak for all of the other mayors, but certainly that's valuable information.
Thank you for that feedback.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Good morning, and thank you again for the presentation, you and the other members of the commission. The City of Fairburn Council met last night to approve our budget for distribution of the $699,000 COVID funding from the county. I did send an email this week, and I did get a response back concerning whether or not I could actually donate a certain portion under community needs, specifically food donations. I just want to make sure I put it on record this morning that that we are within the guidelines to distribute either food items or a check to a nonprofit in the city of Fairburn that will be giving away food items under COVID-19. Just want to make sure before I write these checks next week.
Yes, Mayor, you are under CARES Act for reimbursement for community services. You would have to keep the copy of the check, provide information on the entity that's providing the service, like we've been tracking that. And we have MOUs with each of those entities such that they are, we actually have record of what service they're providing, be it homeless service, be it food, whatever it is. So just have an agreement of some kind. It could be a letter agreement if you want, to document what the purpose of the funds was being expended. But yes, you are able to do that.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Okay, let's continue.
All right, next we wanted to give you, and I realize we're past the hour, but wanted to give you an update from Richard Barron and Jessica Corbett on our elections planning effort. So Rick or Jessica.
Mr. Barron.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you for inviting me to be on this call today with the mayors. And I want to thank all the mayors also for allowing us into any of your facilities that we're using for the election, because that is very helpful for us to be able to use municipal facilities in the run up to this election. So can I get the slides, please? So I'm going to go over what's new for the November 3rd election. Next slide. We have a lot of things that we're doing. The key dates that you need to know about: voter registration deadline is October 5th. The first day of early voting is a week from Monday. That's October 12th. The last day to request an absentee by mail is October 30th, but the U.S. Postal Service is recommending that people request their absentee ballot by October 20th. to allow for time for the application to get processed, for the ballot to go into the mail, and for the ballot to be able to be returned on time by election day, 7 p.m. November 3rd. The last day of early voting is on October 30th. Next slide, please. Voting by mail. The Secretary of State's office set up a portal in late August, early September, and that has enabled us to process absentee by mail applications much easier. In addition, we set up a portal with the help of U.S. Digital Response, and Fulton County voters that receive a ballot application in the mail, that they can now upload that onto our website, and then anything that they submit through the mail by fax or by upload, all of that is processed by us on our own dashboard here. So we've now centralized all of the applications and how we process them. We've received more than 200,000 applications. We've processed almost 195,000 of those already. Those ballots went into the mail beginning on September 19th. Runbeck, the contractor that the state is using, started putting those into the mail on September 19th, and they're mailing those twice a week. So if you have requested an absentee by mail, you should see that shortly if you haven't received it already. You can also go on to the Secretary of State's website and register to track your absentee ballot at that georgia.ballottracks.net/voter. We now have 37 absentee ballot drop boxes in place around the county so that voters can go and drop, if they don't want to use the U.S. Postal Service, they can put their ballots in those drop boxes. We empty those on a daily basis, and all those drop boxes are also surveilled by camera, and we've got video storage for 75 days in place. Next slide, please. Early voting. That again is October 12th to October 30th. Any voter can vote anywhere during early voting. We'll have 30 permanent locations open 7 days a week, 19 straight days. We will have additional outreach sites at the 3 state college campuses, Georgia Tech, Georgia State, and Metropolitan State College. And then we have some at some senior centers. We also will have additional early voting with our mobile units. As you can see the picture there, we received the first of one of our buses last week. It is a beautiful vehicle. There are 10 voting stations on board. We will have 3 check-in stations, and we will be releasing a schedule for those locations. We will schedule them 6 days in each one of the commissioner districts. The last day, we will use those 2 vehicles for overflow at 2 of the busiest sites that will accommodate the vehicle in the parking lot. Next slide, please. These are all of the early voting locations that we are using. You can see that we are open 8 to 6 for the first 2 weeks of early voting. We will be also open both Saturdays and both Sundays. Sundays will be 10 to 6, and the Saturday hours are the same as the weekday hours, 8 to 6. The last week, October 26th to October 30th, we will be open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And for the mobile schedule and the outreach schedule, you can go to fultonelections.com to get that information. And we will get that mobile schedule to all the mayors and to the city clerks and to other elected officials as soon as we have everything confirmed. Next slide, please. We have 255 election day polling locations now. That's up from June 9th with 164 when we lost a quarter of our locations. We had 175 August 11th. Almost all of our polling sites now have 5,000 or fewer voters assigned. That is going to have a major impact on lines. We are trying to drive 80% of the voters to early voting and absentee by mail. That is an achievable goal. We had 64% of the voters vote before election day in the presidential election in 2016. With the way the landscape has changed with regard to absentee by mail, we expect to have at least 300,000 people vote by early or during early voting, and at least receive 150,000 ballot by mail or ballots back by mail for the election. That would mean that we're probably going to be in the neighborhood of 150 to 180,000 people voting on election day. You can go to the MVP site, the My Voter page of the Secretary of State's website, to check on your election day polling locations. We really need voters to know before they go, because you are required by law to vote in your assigned location on election day. We've got 91 polling location changes. So one thing I emphasized in a press conference yesterday to the media was to educate voters to go to that My Voter page. We have done a head of household mailing to all affected voters, and we are also mailing precinct cards to all affected voters. We've also put a flyer into the mail that will remind voters about checking that My Voter page as well. And that, I believe Jessica has already gone into the mail or will be this week. You're on mute.
Thank you, Rick. That's right. It has should be arriving in mailboxes in the next couple of days. And actually, I think the next slide is about our information campaign.
And I'll let Jessica take over on the information campaign. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Rick. Good morning, mayors and commissioners. I hope everyone is doing well. We had a really good call this week with a number of the city communication staff. And even for those who were not able to come, I wanted to just give you all a quick update about what we're doing to get the word out, because we know that communication is vitally important with any election, but particularly with this one. We have, as Rick mentioned, a printed piece that's going in the mail, and I'm holding it up for those of you who can see me. We have an overrun of this and are going to be delivering some boxes to each city hall next week. So please be on the lookout for that. We'll coordinate that with your clerks. I know most of you are not in the office every day right now, but wanted to get these out to you. So if you have anything happening in your jurisdictions, you would also have this information. And it includes all of the early voting sites that Rick just mentioned. Also has information about voting by absentee and the drop boxes. As of yesterday, we have a new Fulton Votes app that also connects people with this information about voting by mail, voting early, voter ID questions, all of that information. It's live now in the Apple Store. So if you're an iPhone user, you can download it now. It should be live any minute with the Google Play Store. So please be on the lookout for that. And I hope you download it. And if you have any feedback, I'd love to hear that. We also have a lot of advertising that's going on. So some of you may have heard radio ads already and seen some out-of-home advertisement promoting voting early. As Rick probably, as you probably heard, with such a high turnout anticipated for this election, we very much want to encourage voters to come out early. They will have, we think, a better experience. You have a much lower risk of provisional ballots and things like that. So voting early is vitally important to the success of the election. And we've already had great support for absentee ballots. So we'll continue to be pushing that message. We also have some tools that we'll be providing, and I'm going to ask the team to switch over to a quick video we have produced. This is not the final, but we'll be sharing this with all of you and want to thank Commissioner Carn and some of our board members from our election board for recommending this. This will be part of a toolkit, a digital toolkit, in addition to the printed materials I just referenced, that will be provided to every elected official in Fulton County. So you, your council members, your communications staff, everyone will receive these digital materials as well as the printed materials I just talked about. Team, if you want to go ahead and hit play, thank you.
Fulton County voters, Election Day is around the corner. We've made it easier for you to cast your ballot. You have 3 ways to vote this year. You can vote by mail, vote early, or vote on Election Day. Voting by mail is safe and secure. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. Simply request your ballot, complete and sign it, then return by mail or drop box. You can apply for an absentee ballot with a new online portal. Go to ballotrequest.sos.ga.gov. If you have a written absentee ballot application, you can send it to Fulton County by mail, email, fax, or upload to the county secure portal. Learn more about absentee ballots on Fulton County's website or call the Absentee Ballot Call Center at 404-612-7060. When your ballot arrives, fill it out completely and sign it. Remember to use both envelopes. You can simply return your ballot by mail or use a secure drop box. Fulton County has 36 secure drop boxes, so there's one near you. Simply check our website for the full listing. Voters can also vote early in person. Fulton County has 30 early voting locations. Any Fulton County voter can go and use any of those early voting locations. Early voting is available from October 12th to the 30th, 7 days a week. Fulton County also has new voting bus offering mobile voting, and we will have voting at Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and Metro Tech. Visit our website for details. For everything you need to know about early voting, including a complete list of locations, go to fultoncountyga.gov/vote early or call 404-612-7020. Finally, some voters will choose to vote on Election Day, November 3rd. For this election, Fulton County has added more than 90 Election Day locations to reduce crowding. That means thousands of voters will have a new location for November 3rd. Remember to check the Georgia My Voter page to see if you have a new location. Go to www.mvp.sos.ga.gov. Information is key. Stay informed and share with others. For sample ballots, voting locations, and more, you can visit our website at fultonelections.com or call us at 404-612-7020. For information in the palm of your hand, download the Fulton County Votes app. See you on Election Day.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And again, we will be sharing these tools with you, and I'm sure Rick and I can take any questions if you have them.
Jessica?
Yes, sir.
Mayor Bodie here.
Mayor.
For either you or Mr. Barron there, did I miss, is there an early voting location in the city of Palmetto or in the city of Chattahoochee Hills?
I have the list at my fingertips. I'm sure Rick could tell you, but I believe we will be at the Palmetto Library as one of our outreach locations. Is that correct, Rick?
The mobile bus will be down there, yes, at the Palmetto Library.
Is that 7 days a week for 19 days?
No, it'll be there for I believe 2 days, possibly 3. I'll check on that and we'll get back to you.
Okay. Is there any other cities in South Fulton, well, in Fulton County, other than Chat Hills and Palmetto, that doesn't have a permanent early voting place to go to? Because, you know, we encourage folks, we get a lot of calls, a lot of people walking in City Hall to vote, and we always send them over to the library. And then, of course, now, without knowing what day and how many days that bus will be over there, where's the nearest location that the citizens in Palmetto and the citizens in Chattahoochee Hills, where do we need to send them to vote?
I'm looking at the sites right now.
I mean, I will, I'm just gonna quickly, you have we
have a map that we can get out to everyone, Jessica.
That's a great
There's a map that we can send out that lists all the locations throughout the county.
Did you include on that map the mobile locations where you expect to have it and the dates they'll be there?
We will.
Yes,
And I was in Mayor Barker, we have one map now, and is that the mobile schedule is finalized, we can add that as well,
And
certainly.
if you'll also please include us a map of all the secure ballot box locations, that'd be great too.
Yes, and that, by the way, that interactive map is is available right now online at fultonelections.com.
Well, and Jessica, for this end of the county, the very tip, very end of the county down through here, it's very difficult, you know, when we try to put out there that, you know, they're going to be able to vote for 19 days, but, you know, citizens that are here in Palmetto, you know, you're going to be limited to 2 that you can actually walk to or access, because, and I don't know if y'all are familiar, but with 6 months, we've not seen a MARTA bus. We have no bus transportation. So a lot of those folks have no way other than if a neighbor or a relative, somebody takes them to it. So I'm just pointing out that it makes it very difficult for our citizens not having the Palmetto Library available to go to for those 19 days. I mean, if it's the bus is here for 2 days and they miss it, then they've just missed it. And a lot of them probably won't vote, just to be honest with you.
Mayor, Rick and I will get together after this and get that information to you. And thank you for calling that to our attention. I really appreciate that.
Right, and I appreciate that, but it's just hard for me to understand why within any city in Fulton County, and I'm using Palmetto and Chat Hills for an example, that there would not be a facility that you could walk in and vote any day during that 19-day period. That is really a handicap for us, and it just seems a little bit unfair, just to be honest with you.
Mayor Ingram.
Yes, I wanted to say thank you for all the efforts you're doing to ensure equal access to the ballot. My assumption was when there are 30 early voting locations that clearly there are 15 cities in the county, so there should at least be one in every city in the county. So I echo and share Mayor Bodie's concerns around access to the ballot and making sure that people in every city have at least one standing location for all 19 days. There's a lot of work that's been done to really definitely address the challenges that were experienced in June. But if every city in Fulton County does not have at least one location for all 19 days, that would be a travesty. Because, I mean, denying access or not having early voting locations in places can be viewed as a form of voter suppression. And so there's a lot of great work that has happened. And so I'm hopeful that between now and on the 12th, that would be remedied, because every city in Fulton County should have a permanent voting location for every day of early voting. I also wanted to say, I downloaded the app on yesterday and went on to check my polling location and became a little concerned because about a week and a half ago, I checked my polling location had changed. And so I'm aware that we're getting 5 new polling locations in the city of East Point for election day. So I was changed to one of the new ones. Well, when I downloaded the app on yesterday and checked my polling location just to go through the process, I'm now back at my original polling location. So I have concerns about what polling location I'm really assigned to, and why was there a change for a week or so, probably at least 2 weeks, that was out there, because my neighbors have checked as well and are under the assumption that we have a new polling location. And then yesterday I was assigned back. So I don't know if that's a glitch or
I think
being able to explain to the electors who have already checked why there's this back and forth would be helpful.
Mayor, do you live in the 5th Congressional District?
I live in the 13th Congressional District.
Well, I can explain. In ElectionNet, the way the system is set up, we are not able to assign locations for one election and also assign different locations for another election. In order to order all the precinct cards for the November election, we had to move all of the voters prior to the September election into their November spots to get all of the precinct cards ordered. Before the September election, we had to move all of those back. And now we're in the process of moving everything back to the November. So it created it's just a long process that we have to go through in order to order the precinct cards for the changes for November.
And I understand that and anticipated that, but the challenge is I'm in Congressional District 13. So there would have been no reason to change me from the new November 3rd election polling location back to the September 29th or any other polling location because we didn't participate in the September 29th election. And so that caused a lot of confusion in my area. So there are about 700 residents in the city of East Point that are in Congressional District 13.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been flopped back and forth. And my concern is I'm gonna go on maybe today or next week, and I'm gonna be back at another location. So
I'll
messaging that you guys can send out, that would be helpful. I figured and I understand that we're not in Congressional District 5, but when we went back to a previous polling location, that should have taken us out of that group because the September 29th election was not for us.
Thank you, Mayor. I will work with Mr. Barron.
Some level of communication, that would be helpful.
Yes, ma'am. We will get some clarification. That's a great point. And I think that just highlights the intricacies of having the many number of precincts and the number of the very complex processes. So I agree that's something we need to make sure your citizens are aware of, and I'll work with Mr. Barron to get some messaging that we can share with you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Mayors, anyone else?
Yes, I am thrilled in College Park to be working with the Board of Elections, and we're so happy to have our super mega voting site at the Georgia International Convention Center. And we're grateful to the chairman and Mr. Barron and everyone who has contributed to that happening. But I have to echo Mayor Bodie's sentiments that a big old site in College Park does not make up for the fact that there's nothing in Palmetto or Chat Hills. And so I recognize that there's been a lot of examination on this, but to me, that's unacceptable. And as mayors in this county, we have to stand together. We are committed to doing that. So if there's a problem in one city, it's a problem for us all. Also, I wanted to inquire about the funds that have been spent from the CARES Act for election-related activities. How much are we talking here? I know the bus, I read the article yesterday or the day before on the AJC, it was about $350,000. What's been contributed from the CARES Act specifically for voting?
Ms. Whitmore?
5 million.
And I would like to just clarify that the bus was not CARES Act related, in case anyone who's listening gets that that impression. That was budgeted last year, but as Ms. Whitmore just said, that we're fine.
Can you tell me a little bit about what that 5 million has yielded thus far?
I will have to, let me go into, I'll have to find the budget.
Okay, are you able to do that now while we're?
We can get that information to you. It's going to take me a couple of minutes to access that.
All right, see what you can come up with while we see if there are other questions on the.
Mr. Chair and Mr. Barron, is it safe if those CARES Act funds were used for election, were they used for the May primary and also for the September election as well as November election, or would it only be for November or September? Basically, that 5 million, was it spread out over 2 or 3 elections?
Commissioner Arrington, Vice Chairman Arrington, this is Sharon. Most of the funds out of the $5 million were for equipment, additional equipment, related items in order to be able to have additional polling places. One for social distancing and having, being able to spread folks out. So we acquired some additional BMDs. We acquired some additional, the carriers that the voting equipment is held in at the voting locations. The staff for the augmentation of staff for the call centers that have been set up were provided for out of the COVID funds. Some additional poll pads, about 300 poll pads. Some additional 2-station voting centers. Laptops, printers, and phones for the call center. iPads for the all of the precinct locations.
I mean, I think that's what they were looking for, just some idea, and I'm sure Mr. Barron can follow up later. Mr. Barron, how plausible is it? Because I mean, to me, this is the pink elephant in the room now. I think everyone is saying that they would like to see Palmetto and Chat Hills have a location. How plausible is that at this stage?
The one thing we could do fairly easily would be to look into, in addition to having the mobile unit down there, we can look into adding it to the outreach schedule to get some additional days there at the library.
Okay, Richard.
So what that means then is that you're saying we cannot have a dedicated location in those two cities for 19 days at this point.
I'm not sure. Well, Chat Hills, we've never had early voting in Chattahoochee Hills before. We have done it at the Palmetto Library. The only time that we've done it I believe it's been several years since we've had early voting there the entire period in Palmetto. Usually what we try to do is use it as some sort of an outreach site.
Mr. Barry.
Richard, if I can, go ahead, Mayor.
I was just going to comment the fact that, the library there serves obviously this end of the county. So it's, less than a mile away from Chattahoochee Hills city limits. So I'll excuse myself for speaking for Mayor Reed from out there, but if we just had the library available, for that early voting period, I think it would, serve both cities well as having it right there, as opposed to having to go and travel to somewhere else. I mean, and that far out of the city.
Okay, after we get off this, we'll explore that.
Richard, this is Joe Carr.
Just a minute, everyone. I think we hear you loudly and clearly. So, Mr. Barron, why don't we explore that? I know you can't make that decision. It's going to have to be made by the Board of Registration and Elections, but I think that the case has been made for such a location. So the answer is let's explore it and do what we can, but you can't make that decision.
Correct.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I had a quick comment or two.
Yes, sir. You have the floor.
Thank you, Richard, for the report and the update. Obviously, my sentiments are the same as Commissioner Arrington's. Palmetto Library, I had assumed that was one of the early voting locations. So I think whatever the elections board needs to do to make sure that happens for the entire 19 days, the library needs to be a permanent early voting site. We gave you all the type of additional funding to accommodate whatever needs to be handled and taken care of. And obviously, I think early voting site in every city should have been a minimal standard, but at the least, I want you all to make your best effort to make sure that library is open for early voting the entire time of early voting. The other thing I wanted to speak to were the mobile voting units and vehicles. Now, I was at the event yesterday, and it's a great thing that we're having these. I think this is the first in the state of Georgia. This is certainly a first for Fulton County. The app is a first in the state as well. It is progress. Now, I want to discuss the routes of these mobile voting vehicles because I spoke to someone with Fulton Elections yesterday, and I was a bit surprised in terms of the plans. Sharing with the mayors, informing the mayors about this. We want to consult with these mayors about the routes that happen in their cities and the particular places that these buses can go. I was told that we didn't want to go to any places where this bus couldn't make a full 360-degree turnaround. Now, this is a large bus. I've got the measurements from it. It's a Faber coach. It's 38 feet long, but that's no excuse not to go into, let's say, a housing authority or make sure we cover the senior towers, the places that we know that people who don't have the transportation to maybe get to an early voting location. Part of this funding and this bus is so that we can bring the voting process to your doorstep. And I want to make sure, Richard, that these locations are discussed and not restricted to locations that don't make a lot of sense to me from what I heard. So I want to make sure that we're discussing those routes and we're consulting with the mayors on those routes. And if they have a location in their city that they would like to see that bus at, because they know their city and the voters that need direct access that don't have the transportation probably better than anyone else. So I want to make sure that that's not an excuse for a turnaround. It's not an excuse. We have vehicles that turn around in apartment complexes at senior centers all of the time. Your typical Bluebird Type C school bus is 39 feet long, which is longer than this coach. They turn around in apartment complexes and go all the way through them. Your fire engines and fire ladders are almost 40 feet long, far longer than this bus, and they turn every corner of every apartment complex in College Park. So I want to make sure that this bus is available at the places that our cities need them, not just where we have made a decision where these mobile voting units need to go.
All right, Mr. Barron, let's do this. In the interest of time, you have reasonable criteria that you have used to determine where the buses, where the mobile units are going to go in each city. So let's share that with the mayors and discuss how it happened. And we'll, if adjustments have to be made, we can make the adjustments.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman.
We have to put the buses have to go either to a government facility or a location that is being used for election day as well. They're limited to those two places.
That's my point, Mr. Barron. When you just explain to the mayors what the criteria is, and I'm sure they will be reasonable and understand. But if adjustments have to be made, then you can take that to the Board of Registration and Elections.
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay. Yeah, someone else wanted to be heard.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Ingram. I just want to say, I've heard that we will explore having Palmetto Library be a location, and that it is not the decision of Mr. Barron's or the County Commission whether or not that happens. But I can tell you, we expect that Mr. Barron and the County Commission will be making a strong recommendation to the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections. What happened is a Fulton County, so whether or not it's available shouldn't be an issue. And even if that means that request from Mr. Barron and the Fulton County Commission is that the Fulton County Board of Registration and Elections convenes a special call meeting to address this issue so that it can happen. So, you know, we did a lot of that after the June 9th election, that the county can't make the decisions, that the monies were allocated and that things of that nature. But when we are dealing with issues of dismantling voter suppression and systemic racism within that, we expect to see level of urgency and strong recommendations from this commission and Mr. Barron regarding making Palmetto Library a early voting location for the full 19 days. Because where there's a will, there's a way.
That's what we're going to do. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman, can I
Yes,
just confirm?
sure.
I've heard several other mayors who had not announced previously that they were in attendance, as well as I want to make sure the record reflects Vice Chairman Arrington being present. And I think I also heard someone from
Not someone who.
Mayor Bodie is from Palmetto, and then Mayor Williams from Union City has joined us. Has anyone else joined us that had not previously announced being present? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I did want to ask Mr. Barron, he said the limits are, has to be at a governmental facility. Is that a state law limit? I mean, who
Yes.
imposed that limit?
Yeah, that's governed by state law. And what we're trying to do too was have each of the commissioner districts represented with 6 days each for the mobile voting unit. And that was one of a third criteria that we added to it. We're trying to keep, that's what we did for the early voting locations as well, as we put six locations, 5 locations in each of the 6 commissioner districts.
Okay, mayors, anything else on the election? We have our marching orders, all right?
Mr. Chairman, this is Vince Williams.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
I don't have anything on the election. Certainly, we all have governmental facilities in all of our cities. I do want to say thank you for a very, very informative and certainly collaborative conversation around a number of issues and concerns we've all had. I'm going to jump off now. As you know, and many of you may not know, my wife had surgery this morning, so I am being summoned to get her home. So I look forward to speaking with you soon, and thank you for all that you're doing to make sure that we continue to move Fulton County forward.
Thank
Prayers
you.
with you, Mayor Williams.
Thank you.
Prayers for a speedy recovery.
So, Mayor Bodker, I believe you want to, Mr. Mayor Bodker, you had some, indicated earlier that you wanted to make some closing remarks on behalf of the mayors.
I think I can get us through this last section, which is future agenda items. Mr. Chairman, I want to suggest that you work with myself and my colleague, Tom Reed, representing the cities of South Fulton and North Fulton, and obviously whoever wants to represent Atlanta. I think we can come to a better way to come to an agenda that is mutually agreeable to create better dialogue throughout the meeting. Certainly appreciate that we had a lot of catch up to do related to some of the requests that the mayor's made, but if we're going to make these meetings productive, I think it needs to include agenda items that are being included both from the mayors and from the Fulton County Commission, and that we probably do a lot less presenting and a lot more talking. So with that, I appreciate the items that were listed. The mayors and I had an opportunity to meet yesterday. We certainly are aware of those. I'm not sure that there's complete agreement that that's where our priorities are, and that's the whole point of us trying to start this dialogue on a regular basis.
Okay, Ms. Roach, are you with us?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I am.
Okay. Would you like to talk about some of the next steps and items in consideration of what Mayor Bodker just said?
Sure, and Mayor Bodker, I was going to start my remarks with this list not being mutually exclusive, but more suggestive of some of the things that are known to us that are unfinished business that we either have to catch up on, and it's an offer of information that the county has that we believe that the mayors would benefit from participating in a conversation about. Certainly, as we develop each agenda in the future, it should be one developed jointly by the county as well as the cities. And I do agree with you that less presentation is probably more productive, and more discussion is more productive. I don't disagree with anything that you said. The list is meant to provide food for thought and just information on topics that we have discussed in the future that we have some unfinished business on. And I can quickly go through them, Mr. Chairman, if that's your pleasure. Otherwise, we can simply defer to a list that's developed by the mayors as well as the county.
Mr. Chairman, given that we're so far over our schedule, and I know many of us have other items, I personally can read the list. I certainly appreciate it. And I think we can develop a more comprehensive list and some timing for those by collaborating between the mayors and the county going forward.
That sounds good.
Okay, what we'll do then, because this, the manager and his team prepared this agenda. So what we'll do, Mr. Manager, before our next meeting, which will be the first, unless there's an emergency that comes up, is scheduled for the first meeting, first Friday in November. If you then will get with Mayor Bodker and Mayor Reed, and you jointly develop an agenda for us.
Will do.
Okay. Any other matters that come before us today? If not, thank everyone, especially the mayors who were in attendance, and I'm really excited about where we're headed, and look forward to working with you and seeing each of you in the future. And I failed to mention, let's all keep the president and the first lady in our prayers as we move forward. And I sent a personal note to Mayor Bottom. She had a very classy statement, I thought, that she released on behalf of her feelings, rather, on behalf of the people of the city of Atlanta with respect to what the president and the first lady are going through. So thank each of you for being with us today. So without objection, we are adjourned.